Again, a nice shout out to Steve Geller. I got very nice feedback from a lot of people who are using the recording. Steve, it's appreciated that what you do for the Olam.
It's all you, Rabbi.
Albeit I'm not so appreciative because my numbers have gone down in the Zoom. So I think that a lot of guys are saying, okay, I'll catch the tape. Okay, be there as it may. It's all gaiva anyway, right? As long as you're learning Torah, that's the main thing. It's all gaiva. People say to you, I'll share, great. How many guys do you have? Like, how many, whatever you have, you know? Okay, so we're up to the Mishnah on Ayin Beis, Amid Beis. Ayin Beis, Amid Beis. You got fathers and sons living together in a chutzner, and the sons are being supported by the father. And the sons are being supported by the father. Question, how many, when you make an Erev, do you have to go ahead and, I think I got a Mendy and a Mendel? No, okay. Anyway, when you make the Erev, do they count as one or do they count as five? Says the Mishnah, and they're being supported by the father. Literally, the Havamin of the Gemara is they're eating at their father's table. However, when they sleep in their own houses. So they have their own houses for sleeping, and they're eating by their father's table. You need an Erev. When you collect the Erev, you have to collect from each and every one of them. In other words, we don't say they all consider the father, they're all living as one, and you give one Erev to the whole chutzner. Each one has to go ahead and give to the chutzner. And we're going to see it speaking in a particular ukimta, a very specific situation. Lefikach, if one of them forgets Erev, then you have to go to plan B, which is mevatel es rishusoi. In order to allow to carry in the chutzner, you would have to go ahead, Rod, and be mevatel rishus. You have to be mevatel rishus. That's the din. A Masai, however, there's an adjoiner over here. When did we say this? A Masai, bisman shemolichim eruvon b'makam acher. That's when they're bringing the erev to another place. Be it another chutzner, be it within their chutzner. In other words, there could be two types of scenarios over here. There's, let's say, a chutzner, you have father, 5 sons, and 3 other people. So if they're bringing the erev to the 3 other people, or they're bringing the erev to another chutzner, then they have to go ahead and give of themselves. Aval im hoya erev bo etzlon. If the erev is going to daddy's house, then oishe'ein imohem diurin, or there is no 3 other people. There's only them and the father. Then and it's from the Arif, they don't have to go ahead and make an Erev. It's very, very interesting. If they and the father are the only game in town, then it's only one. That's it. They one Erev. That's it. One will do the job. However, if there are other people living there, then they're going to have to give. The Gemara says the Svara migu deshar diyurin asrei, since the other diurin, the other people live there, have the capacity to aser. Inunami asri, they also aser. It's not a migu like a time. It's not a kayach hamigu with taina that we're saying choshen mishpat. Believe me, this I could have said this. That's not type of migu. It's a migu like since there are people that aser, this also aser. So very interesting svara.
So if there's no other people there, and one of them forgets, then that's not a problem, right?
Correct. If there's no other people then they're all considered one. Shmamina. Now, guys, the Havmina of the Gemara was they're eating by daddy and they're sleeping in their house. And we said that where they sleep is going to be whether they're considered among them, right? In other words, if there's other people, they'll be considered a separate Erev. We have Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. What's the determining factor of whether you have a dira? Will you eat or will you sleep? Apparently from our Mishnah, it's where you sleep. Because we're saying if there are other people there and they're sleeping in separate houses, yet eating by daddy is not the criteria. It's where they're sleeping. A raya to Shmuel who says that the dira is what's kaveya, and a shaila on Rav who says that it's the pita that's kaveya, that it's the bread that's kaveya. Because the havamina is they're eating with the father. And nonetheless, it's going to be considered a separate Erev because it's where they're sleeping that determines it. And for the Gemara, Yehuda Rab, the Makali Prashanu, they're not eating with the father. They're getting a stipend from the father who's giving them money, and they're buying food, or the father's sending them the food. The bottom line is they're eating in their own houses also. So once they're eating and sleeping in their own houses, it doesn't play at all on the shaila. What's the criteria? Whether you go after Rav or you go after Shmuel. Either way, it's not gonna make a difference. Tanrabana, Mishi Yeshle Beis Shar. These are places that are not chashav. You have a Beis Shar and a Sadra. It's a portico. It doesn't have a roof. Merpeset. We spoke about the merpeset. It's the attic. It's the porch that's outside an elevated building. You have a duplex, and it's the floor in the duplex, and you go down a ladder. We have the shaila with the four amis and going out the side, exit stage right. You might remember that. All these, if you're in the Chasa Chavera, they're not considered dira. They're not considered a dira that if you don't mishtate in the Erev, would asa. None of these would asa. Conversely, Beis HaTeven, which is a house where you store teven, Beis HaBakar, a house of cattle, Beis HaEitzim, wood, Beis HaEitzris, food, Harizah Oisa Alav. That would asa, Rabbi Yudah Mein Oisa. Now, why would this asa? It's very interesting. Are we speaking with as a dira? There's no dira. Rabbi Kippur gets Seichim to Tosfos guys on Pei Hey Amid Beis, and on Pei Hey Amid Beis it says even if there's no tevin, it would asa, because all you need that it's royal dira. So since this place is royal dira, it would asa, even if it's not being used. It's royal to be used, and a person owns it. His ownership of this place would asa if you don't go ahead and make an Erev. His ownership of this place would asa if you don't make an Erev. Even if you know he's not coming? Even, again, we said a guy is not, regardless. He could be in Chutz La'aretz. No, I'm saying no. Again, his ownership over there, there's no bittul, he wasn't in Mavato, his ownership is over there. You have to say, maybe, I don't even know if he has to come here. It means if this is a Makam Choshnev, he owns a place, he owns a piece of the property. Rabbi Yudah Ein Oisa. Rabbi Yehuda says he does. Rabbi Yehuda says he doesn't ask that because no one lives there. Only if someone lives there would he ask it. Ein Oisa Elamokim Dir Bilvad. You need someone living there. Rabbi Yehuda Ma'asav ben Nafcha Shohilu Chamesh Chatzeres Busha. He had 5 Chatzeres in Ushu, but Ma'asav think Chachamim. The incident came in front of the Chachamim, the Omru, and they said Ein Oisa Ela Beis Dir Bilvad. Only a Beis Dir Mashma, a Beis Shar. Even that's a Beis Dira. Says the Gemara, Beis Dira Sakdati. You just told me a Beis Shar doesn't work. Says the Gemara, Ela Ema Mokan Dira. It has to have it. The only thing that's going to answer is the place of his Dira. Fred Gemara, my Mokan Dira. So now we get to the Machlokes. Amar Aleph Ravama Mokan Pitoy. The Mokan Dira is the place he eats. Shmuel Omar Mokan Lina, the place that he sleeps. Okay. So now the Gemara is going to ask on Rav. You say you go after the place you eat. I'll bring you a raya. You go after the place you sleep. Haroyim, they're shepherds, the kayotzin, these are people who are watching. They used to go ahead and dry fruit. They would dry fruit in the sun. They didn't have dehydrators like we have. They would put and they didn't have refrigeration either. So it was very common to go ahead to preserve their figs in particular. They would dry them out. Kitsios, right? Kitsios, these are called kitsios. So the person who would be in charge of this would be called a kaitzin. Burgan and people live in huts. The Shomei Peros, these guys are watching the fields. So these guys are all in the fields. Bisman Shedark and Lolan Be'er, when they would sleep in the city, Harihen Ka'an She'er. Now, this is speaking Linyan Erev Tchumim, but we're going to take the concept of what's considered a dira, Linyan Erev Tchumim, and apply it to what's considered a dira, Linyan Erev Chatzeros. So it's spelling Tchumim to Chatzeros. So if these people would live in the city, they would sleep in the city, even Harihen Ka'an She'er. Bisman Shedark and Lolan Be'sadeh. Even though they would eat in the city, if they live in the Sadeh, from where they sleep. Clearly, it's going after what? Where you sleep. Kashan Rav says where you eat. Here, clearly, it's going after where you sleep. It says, that's not a raya. When these guys are in the field, it's a pain for them to go back to the city and eat. They'd rather the food come to them in the field. So the reason why you go after the field is not because they're lodging there, is because that's where they want their food. They're eating in the city, but again, they're sleeping in the field. Why would you have to go to the city, eat, and then schlep back to the field? I'd much rather have, Uber Eats come out and bring me some food, right? Bring me some food. So you see over there, Rav says it's taka going after the food because they want the food to be in the field. That's where they want it to be. Rabbi Yosef, says Rabbi Yosef, again, Rabbi Yosef got sick all the time. Come in this Masechta, we had it multiple times. He got sick and he had Abaya go ahead and remind him. So Rabbi Yosef, I didn't hear the sugya. I'm like, Abaya, at Amanelon, you taught it to us. And you taught it to us on the following. Our Mishnah. Their brothers, they're being slamech, they're being supported by their father. And they're sleeping in the houses. We see from here what? Since you need an air from each and every one of them. What's causing the dira? The place where you sleep. The place where you sleep. So this is what you taught it to us on. But Amrit on Allah, Amrav Yudam Arav, Mekabli Pras Shanu. He said, you had no raya Mekabli Pras. In other words, Abai reminded of the conversation that we began the Gemara with. Right? We began the Gemara reminded that conversation. Tan Rabbanan. Now, we said kids are considered separate entities when they are set when other people live there, and when no one else lives there, then they're considered part of the father. You guys remember the addendum to the Mishnah? The addendum to the Mishnah was a Messiah they're considered separate. That's when there are other diurim. So meager that other people answer them, they answer as well. But if no one else was living there, then they'd be considered as one. So the Gemara now is going to discuss other relationships that are considered as one, where you wouldn't need an Erev, separate Erev for different ones. It says Tan Rabbanan, Misha yesh lechamesh noshim, you have 5 wives, someone who needs his head examined, right? He has 5 wives. Mikabalas pras mibalehem, who all are being supported by their husband. The chamisha avodim, and 5 avodim, mikablim pras, who also mikablim. Now, and I guess they're sleeping in different locales. Do you have to go ahead and make an Erev or not? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseiro, Mata ben Noshim, Noshim are considered one, as one. The Sfar being Ishto Kegufo. In this, women will be considered as one. And V'oisa ba'avodim, but avodim would be considered what? Separate. We need an Erev to collect from the avodim. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseiro says the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba says the opposite. Mata ba'avodim, by avodim they're considered as one. V'oisa ben Noshim, but Noshim not. Amarav, my time with Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, the Chsiv, it says with Daniel Bisra Malka, and Daniel was literally in the gates. He was in the presence of the king. Meaning, Rashi brings wherever he was, the king was with him. So you see, the Ebed, according to Yehud Ben Bava, is always considered as one with the king. And I guess you have to say he didn't explain why woman's usher. You have to say in this. We don't say Yishta Kagufo. Again, I would go both ways with that svara. So Yehud Ben Beseira, woman as one erev, avodim not. Rabbi Yehud Ben Bava, avodim yes, and woman not. Woman separate. Now, Pshita ben Eitzelav Kid Amarans. Pashit, the relationship between father and son, they're considered as one. Again, guys, the addendum, provided there's no one else living there, then there is one. Isha Eitzel Baila, the Eved Eitzel Rabbi, Plukta the Rabbi Yehuda, Meseir Rabbi Yehuda Bava that we just mentioned. Talmud Eitzel Rabbi. Talmud, we know the relationship with Rebbe Talmud is often described as Talmidim Harihim Kibbanim. So to what extent are they considered? In other words, the Talmud is by the Rebbe, he's being supported by the Rebbe. Is he like a son and you'd only need one Erev or not? My Tashma, the Rav Bei Rebbe Chia, Rav who is learning by his uncle, Rebbe Chia, and Rebbe Chia was supporting him. Amar, Ein anu tzrichim la'arev, we don't have to make an Erev because we're considered as one. Shrei anu saimchim ashul chanoi, we're saimch shel Rebbe Chia. So therefore we don't have to make an Erev. Why? Because we're considered one. So we can be paishet the shaila that a Talmud Makam Rebbe, provided there's no other diurim in the chatzar, is considered one. Reb Chia Bei Rebbe, Reb Chia is his whose Rebbe was Rebbe Yehuda Nasi. Right? Amar ein anu tzrichim la'arev. We don't have to make an erev. Shari anu saimchin al shulchan shel Rebbe. We're saimich on shulchan of Rebbe. And again, all these guys, the whole discussion we had is provided there's no one else living in the chatzar. Once there's someone living in the chatzar, we're going to see in a second the svar of Migu, the Asra Yinu, Asra Nami. Boy Minei Abaya may Rabba. Chamisha Shegavu Ese Ruvan. 5 people collect the Erev. Now, they're taking that Erev and they're bringing it to another Chatzar. Erev Echel Kulon, one for all. All you need one. Now, we ended off yesterday's Gemara, guys, with we appreciate that. Look, yesterday's Gemara, right before the Mishnah, we appreciate the Shaila. Chamisha should go by say Rubik Shemlichas Zerul Makamacher, Erev Echel Kulon, one Erev for everybody. So obviously, Rashi says he didn't hear this. He didn't hear this, or he argues on it. So, Amalei Erev Echel Kulon. What's the difference between 5 people as one and 5 brothers you're treating as different? Says the brothers could go in the ikad the urim ba'dayu. There are people living with them, and the migu. This is what I've been hacking you. The migu the hani asrei. Since the other people are in the chutza asa, haninami the brothers asa as well, and that's why you need l'chalecha b'yachad. Now, Hachanami Mistaber to say a Mishnah speaking about that. Diktani Emasai Bisman Shemaluchanis Eruv Mibakam Acher, where you send the Eruv out. Then you need 5. Avum Hoye Eruvin Ba'etzlam, but if the Eruv would come to the father's house, Oishain the Urim Imahem or other people are not living there B'Chatzer, Ain't Tzrichim La'arev. You wouldn't have to make an Eruv. Shmamina. Guys, look back at the Mishnah now. Look back at our Mishnah. Ha'achin Shoya Olchen HaShulchan Aviyen V'Yashen B'Vatechem. Right, and there are other people living in the chutzner. Then you would need an erev v'chalecha b'yachad, and the father's giving them food outside, meaning they're not eating at the father's table; they're eating in their own house and sleeping in their own house. You're gonna have to go to Plan B to a bit. The Amasai, when do we say they're considered as 5? That's only if they're exporting. Avum hoye erev ba'etzlan, if the erev comes to the father's house, or she'eni mohem diurim, or there are no other people b'chatzar, then ain't it tzrichim Arab. They don't have to make an erev because they're all considered one. So very geschmack, right? That addendum, it all fits in. Good.
I missed something. Didn't we say that all this works so long as there's no one else living there?
We just did that, right?
What?
Yeah. I just stuck that back in the Mishnah.
That this guy's living there, but then that answers.
Right. So I stuck back in the ratio. I stuck in the ratio. The ratio. When do we say there are 5 that there are other people living there? And
Yeah.
and it's substantiated that that's the pshat because at the end of the Mishnah it says it openly. Amasai. When do we say there are 5? That's if no one's living there. That's if somebody's living there. If no one else is living there, then they're considered one. It's geschmack. Boy min Rav Chia bar Oven merav Sheshes. Bnei Beirav. Right? The Achli Nama Bidbaga. They eat in the valley. The Asu Baisi Beirav, and they come and sleep in the yeshiva. Ki Mashkina Lu Tchuma. When we measure the Tchum, Mi Beirav Mashkina, do we measure from the place where they sleep? Or Mi Baga Mashkina, over the place they eat. In other words, this is the Shaila of one of Rav and Shmuel. Do we go after the place they eat, or we go after the place they sleep? Amalei. So he told him. Rav Sheshes answered, Mashchinan, we go ahead and measure. Mibei Rav, we go back from where he sleeps. If you put your Erev in place A and you come back home to sleep, place B, the Mashchin Tchuma Meiruva. We go ahead and we measure from the Erev. So why in one place are you measuring where you sleep and the other place measuring where you're going to eat your Erev? So he says, Bahu anansahade ubehada anansahade. Both cases, it's clear. What does that mean? Bahu anansahade di mistadele hasam nichale. Right? In other words, it would have been better that what? If he would have been able to sleep and eat in the same spot. However, he couldn't. Conversely, if you would have brought him, in other words, fellas, when the guy puts his Erev over there, and he comes back home, he doesn't want to come back home. If he had a dira in the place of his Erev, he would have stayed there. So of course we're going to go ahead and measure from where the food is. It makes sense. The only reason he's coming back, it's like the same story we said above. by the royim, right? By the royim, they'd rather the food come to them. In this case, he'd rather the bed come there, but you can't. So therefore, you're going to count from the food because that's where he wants it. What about the yeshiva man? The yeshiva man who's sleeping, guys. He's sleeping in the yeshiva, but he's eating in the valley. So if you would have brought him food to his house, that would have been better for him. He'd much rather have food in yeshiva than have him go. So in other words, Anan Sadi means we evaluate the situation. We don't say carte blanche wherever he eats or wherever he sleeps. There's always the fine print where you have to look and see exactly what he wants. Says the Gemara, boy Rami bar Choma mirafista. Avu b'nai haravet amidai kirabin dami chichin dami. Okay, this we need a idea for. Let's see Rashi, guys. Avu b'nai haravet amidai kirabin dami. Le'inyan shtei chatzera zuluf nimizu. We've had this quite a few times. You know, the mission is going to be later on. You have two chatzerim, one inside, one outside. To get to the Rishus Harabim, the inside guy has to walk through the outside guy. Good? Now, let's say, it continues, V'trisas regla pnimius al chitzayna. V'tanan, we're going to learn Be'ez Hashem in 2 days, Im hoyu shel yechidim, if the inner one was of yechidim, meaning they don't have to make an Erev, it was owned by an individual, sheyachid dar b'pnimius, v'havi regla muteres b'mkomo. Ein aser shlo b'mkomo. If I go ahead and I live alone there, I don't have to make an Erev. So I'm mutter in my spot. Since I'm mutter in my spot, I don't asa. If I don't make an Erev with the outside guy, I don't asa. However, if it's a rabbin, if it's more than 2 people living in the inner chutzner and they don't make an Erev, I'm going to ask them on the outside guys. So what do we want to know? How do you view 2 people in the inner chutzner that have a relationship that might make them one? If we say the Rebbe and the Talmud are as one, then they don't make an Erev and they won't answer on the outside guy. But if we view them as a rabbin, as 2, then they would answer on the outside guy. That's what the Gemara wants to know. Let's finish Rashi. However, it's more than one in the inner chutzner. It's a multitude. It's more than one person. And they didn't make an Erev, then you hear the guy hear this. We're going to see this in the Mishnah, so you might as well get it now. Guys, listen up. If you go ahead and in the inner chutzner, you're a single guy, or 2 guys that don't have to make an Erev, which is the shiloh at hand, then the outer guys will be mutter. If conversely, we don't make an Erev, even if the outer guy does make an Erev, since we have rights to go out, we'll ask them. Question, how do you view the Av, Beno, Rav, Talmud relationship? As 1 and they won't answer, or as 2 and they would? That's the Gemara Shaila. Let's see it inside. Avu Beno, Harav Talmido, Kirab and Damu, and they would answer if they don't make an Erev? Or Kiyichidim Damu, and they don't have to make an Erev. Tzrichim Erev, ain't Tzrichim Erev. It's very geschmack. Mavoi Shalehen Nita Belechi B'Koira. The Mavoi, does it become Nita Belechi B'Koira because it's considered 2 houses? Or ain't Nita Belechi B'Koira because it's only 1 house? We know that what? My Chavus will tell you, but for a Mavoi to go ahead and become Mutta, you need Chatzeros going into the Mavoi and houses going into the Chatzeros. So if we're going to view them as 1, maybe the Mavoi won't be Mutta Lechi B'Koira because you're lacking houses. Amalei Tani Su, you learned the answer to it. Avu B'noi Harav Talmidoi B'zman She'ini Imam Diurin. If there's no one that lives with them, Harehenki Yechidim, Ain't Tzrichim La'arev. They don't have to make an Erev, and therefore the outer guys will be Mutta. Conversely, Umavi Shalahen Nita B'Lechi B'Koira. The Mavi Shalahen would be Mutta with a Lechi B'Koira because we view them as separate houses. In other words, even though they don't have to make an Erev, the bottom line is they are Chatzeros, physically they're houses that go into Chatzeros, and the Chatzeros go into Mavoi. So since you have a physical houses going into chatzeros, and chatzeros going into a mavoi, it would work. Okay, next. I'm going to do the chart. I made a chart. I'm going to do the chart before the Gemara, okay? And then we're going to stick it in the Gemara. You have over here 4 cases, 1, 2, 3, and 4 dinim. Now, as a hakdama to this, before you get stuck looking at the chart, what did I do? Okay. As a hakdama to this, let's speak out something we discussed 2 days ago. We know that an Erev Chatzeros is for the house to the Chatzer, or from one Chatzer to another Chatzer. We know Shituf Mavois is allowing you to go from the Chatzer to the Mavoi. You would go in the Chatzer, and all the people of the Mavoi would put Yayin, we saw, Yayin, or in the Chatzer, and that would permit everyone to have a partnership in the Mavoi. We also saw that an Erev Chatzeres has to be with pas, it has to be with bread. So two givens. Erev Chatzeres with pas, Shitufim Mavois, even with what? Even with wine. If I make one, do I have to make the other? Do we say an Erev Chatzeres helps for what? For the Mavoi? Do we say the sheet of Mavoi helps for what? For Erev Chatzeres? Reb Meir said it doesn't. Reb Meir was worried if you're going to say the sheet of Mavoi helps, you're going to forget, the Kimbalach are going to forget there's such a thing called an Erev, because they're not lumpen, they don't know lumpus that you made a sheet of Mavoi. They won't see an Erev in their lives. They won't see any bread being put away. They won't see a box of matzah being put away, like we all know. So therefore, said Reb Meir, you can't go ahead and you need to make both. You need to make the Erev and you need to make what? You need to make. The Chachamim said it would help. The Erev, well, whether you need bread or yayin, that's a shayla, but again, it would help. You one or the other. Now, we're going to have 4 cases, and based upon those 4 cases, 2 are going to be according to Reb Meir, and 2 are going to be according to the Chachamim. Okay, so let's see the cases, and then we're going to see this all in the Gemara, okay? Case number 1. You made an Erev Chatzeros, however, you did not make a sheet of Mavois. You made an Erev Chatzeros, you didn't make a sheet of Mavois, okay? That's what you did. So the din is, this is what the Mishnah says, the din is, you would be able to carry the Chatzer, you won't be able to carry in the Mavoi. Now, obviously, this must go according to Reb Meir, who says one can't make for the other. You have to make 2 separate. Good? Because like the Chachamim, fellas, even if I didn't make the Shituf, since I made the Erev, it should help for the what? It should help for the Shituf Mavais. You don't have to make both. Only like Reb Meir do you have to go ahead and make both, because he's worried you're going to forget. Guys, you with me so far? This is cool. All of a sudden, I got colors over here. Steve, I got colors I can draw. Wow. When did this happen?
Let's bring in the kindergartners.
Okay, anyway, so this is great. Okay, so guys, look, you see? That's great. Now, so this is Now, second case. Guys, halk up. Now, the Havamina is you only made a sheet of Mavoi. You didn't make an Erev Chatzeres at all. The Havamina is v'nishtaf b'mavoi. The Mishnah says, guys, they're both mutter. Both are mutter. Good? Got it? Now, according to who is this? The Chachamim, that you don't need Erev Chatzeres if you made a shituf. Because both the Mavoi and the Chatzah will be mutter. That's not Reb Meir, that's the Chachamim. Lo Reb Meir, only the Chatzah should be mutter, right? If I made only a sheet of Mavois, says the Chachamim. So now you got a problem. The first case in the Mishnah is like Reb Meir. Yet the second case in the Mishnah is like the Chachamim. Case number 3. You made an Erev Chaseros, you made a sheet of Mavoi, but one of the guys forgot to be part of the Erev. Good. Says the din, they're both mutter. Guys, why are they mutter? You don't have an Erev. What's the answer? I don't have an Erev, but I do have a sheet of Mavois. And therefore it precludes my Erev. That's the Chachamim. So it comes out, it's going to Chachamim. Now, it must be speaking where there's no bittul. Because if there was bittul, then what's the chiddush? Why shouldn't it work? What's the what's the whole shaila? You'd have both then. So it must be, even though you don't have a bittul, it works. Because the sheet of mavois, which everyone was part of, will preclude the Erev Chatzeris, which one guy forgot. And finally, the last case, you made an Erev Chatzeris, you made a sheet of mavois, but one of the people of the mavoi forgot to mishtatef. Then we say, Chatzas muta mavoi asa. Back to the problem. That must be Reb Meir. Because later Chachamim, since you have a good Erev, it should work. So it comes out, guys, watch. Reb Meir is the Tana of the first case. Reb Meir is the Tana of the last case. And we have the Chum in the middle. That's kind of funny, right? That is kind of funny. That doesn't seem so good. All of a sudden, that popped up. I must have. It's amazing. Guys, you good? 4 cases. Let's see them inside. Chamesh chatzerois psuchais zulizu. You got 5. Count them. 5, one after the other, like railroad cars, open to each other, and they all open to a mavoi. Chamesh chatzerois psuchazu bezu. Guys, picture like 1 adjacent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they all go into a mavoi. Good. Eru b'chatzerois v'lenishtat b'mavoi. Case number 1. I'm going to read it. I'm going to have the chart in front of you so you'll see it. Okay. Case number 1. Okay. Baruch Hashem, got rid of the case number 1. You made an eru chatzerois, but you didn't make a sheet of mavois. Mutarim b'chatzerois v'asa b'mavoi. That's what it says. Next case. V'im nishtatfu, case number 2, guys. V'im nishtatfu, v'mavoi, mutarim kan v'kan. They're both muta. Case number 3, irvim b'chatzerois, v'loi irvim mutarim, and irvim b'chatzerois, irvim b'chatzerois v'mavoi, v'shakash echem b'chatzer, one of them forgot of the chatzer, v'loi irvim, mutarim kan v'kan. They're both muta, whether it's in the alleyway, in the mavoi, or the chatzer. Last case, mavoi, but one of the guys who forgot was a mavi guy. Then chatzerois mutarim, but the mutarim chatzerois was surim b'mavoi. Chatzerois and mutarim chatzerois wasn't. And then Gemara just gives a concluding statement. Shamavi l'chatzerois kechatz l'batim. Okay, we'll see what that statement means. Anyway, money. Who's the Tana of the first case? It's Reb Meir, the Amar. Being an Erev or being in Shita, if you need both. Guys, look at the chart. Case number 1. Why doesn't it work? Here. Chatzeris and Muta Movizasa, because you need both, and you only have one. I only have an Erev, I have a Chat Erev, it works. I don't have a Mavoi, because I didn't make a Shita Mavois. That's Reb Meir, who needs both. Emi Mitziasa, let me go to case number 2. V'im nishtatfu b'mavoi mutarin, kan v'kan. Aslan Rabbanon, the Ami b'chad Sager. Pirish. This Havamina, guys, is that this is a second case, meaning I only made a sheet of mavois. That's going to help for both. Who holds it helps for both? The Chachamim, because once I make a sheet of, I don't need an Erev Chatzeres, right? Guys, good? And for the Gemara, like Hasha, the Im Nishtatfu Nami Ka'amar. This case number 2 is going on case number 1. Erev Chatzeres V'lein Nishtatfu. Then the Chatz is Muta and the Mavi is Asa. The Im Nishtatfu b'Mavoi. However, if I go ahead and I'm Mishtatif in the Mavoi, I go ahead and I'm Mishtatif in the Mavoi, right? I'm Mishtatif in the Mavoi, guys. So therefore, both are Muta. So now that's according to Reb Meir. Erase Chachamim over here. and put in this is going to take a little time. David, I'm not your mother-in-law, huh? Okay, nice. I look like I'm back in kindergarten. You're not supposed to be laughing. Fellas, in other words, if the second case is speaking where you made both, then it's both according to Reb Meir. So what did I do? I went ahead, Baruch Hashem, I think it automatically gets rid of it. Thank God. So you go ahead. This is not the Chachamim.
It's on the video.
What?
It's on the video. Okay,
it's okay. I'm married. Hopefully all my children will be married by then. And so the Chacham say it's Reb Meir, guys, right? So it's Geschmack now. This and this are one case. So it's not Reb Meir and the Chachamim. It's all Reb Meir. It's all Reb Meir because this means I did both. I did an Erev and I did a sheet of both Amutta. Case number 3. Let's go back in the Gemara now. Ema Seifa, case number 3. Ervu b'chatzeros, v'nishtat v'mavi, v'shokach echem b'nei chatzer. One of the guys forgot. For like Eruv, and he to make an Eruv, then he make an Eruv. Mutar and kan b'kan. Guys, case number 3, they're both mutar, correct? Heichi dami, what's the case? Idlei batal amay mutarim. If it wasn't mevatel, no, if he wasn't mevatel, why is it mutar? El pshita must be he was mevatel, and that's why they're both mutar. Ema seifa, shokach echem b'nei mavoi. Right? Feed the bottle it's a bottle why you obviously must be there's no bittel. Ain't bittel. So guys, I'll tell you over here. There's no bittel, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help, and that's why it's asa b'mavoy. But Tanya shari bittel lechem b'shusay div Reb Meir. The opening salvo we had in this parak that Tzedoki Reb Meir said. He can be mevatel. It's like he said, hurry up and get your stuff because he may neg on his bittul. So you see, Reb Meir holds that bittul is shaykh by a mavoy. So got a problem, guys. Look, if there was no bittul over here, if there was no bittul, right? There obviously must be no bittul because if there was bittul, it would be mutter b'mavoy. So it must be no bittul. So if there's no bittul over here, there's no bittul over here. If there's no bittul over here, the whole reason that this can be mutter is because you only need one and not the other. Guys, focus on my words and look at these two cases. Watch. There's 2 reasons that they'll both be mutter. Either because I corrected my Erev problem by making a bittul, or because I don't need my Erev because I made a sheet of mavois. Good? Either or. The Gemara wants to say it must be that I was mavatal, the Erev. The Gemara is now disproving that and saying, just like over here there was no bittul, because if there was bittul here, you should be permitted in the mavoi. It must be there's no bittul over here. Now, if no bittul over here, guys, the only reason that the chutzah would work is because I don't need it, because it's overridden by the fact that I made a sheet of mavois. Who is that according to? The Chachamim. So it comes out. I got Reb Meir here. Again, we corrected this as Reb Meir here. But I got Chachamim here and Reb Meir here. So I have the Reisha according to Reb Meir, the Seifa according to Reb Meir, and the Mitziyasa according to the Chachamim. Did that make any sense? You saw it in front of you. It was right there, right? Okay, great. So let's see the Gemara. Let's fit it in. Says the Gemara. Elapshita, the loy batal. It must be the last case by the mavoy. The reason it's asa because he wasn't mevatel, the guy who forgot. The seifa loy batal, and when the case of the mavoy that was forgotten wasn't bittul, reish nami means this case number 3, where the erev fellow nami loy batal. Now, therefore, the whole reason that both are mutta must be because the shituf helped for the bittul, for the erev. So it comes out reish v'seifa Reb Meir. Case number 1 and case number 4 are Reb Meir, And again, case number 2 became case 1a. And Mitziyasa, case number 3 is the Rabbanon. So l'chor, you have a problem. And for the Gemara, Kula Reb Meir. Everything's according to Reb Meir. Guys, look at the chart. It's geschmack as anything. What's the reason Reb Meir doesn't like this case? Reb Meir said, you made an Erev Chetzeris, you made, but one person forgot. You made a mavoi, a sheet of mavois, and he said it doesn't help. What was he worried about? He's worried that if you allow the sheet of in place of the Erev, the Kindalach are going to forget there's such a thing called an Erev, right? Yes? What happened over here, guys? Did they make an Erev? They made an Erev, but what happened? One guy forgot. So big deal, they made an Erev. So therefore, this case also is Reb Meir. This case, the whole Svara Reb Meir doesn't apply over here. The reason Reb Meir says you need both, is that you shouldn't forget there's something called an Erev. That's when you don't make an Erev. But over here, he made an Erev. Just one guy forgot. So Memela, the reason doesn't apply. And therefore, both are mutter. So the whole Mishnah comes out according to Reb Meir. It's like the tailor. We made it fit, right? But now it fits with it. It's a lumdis. Everything fits geschmack. We're all good? We're all good. Great. Okay, let's finish up. Says the Gemara, Kul Reb Meir. Why do you need both? Since most of the people did make an Erev, it's not going to be forgotten. Geschmack. Now a new Gemara. Guys, our case was they were all open to each other. Rab's going to say it's speaking where they weren't open to each other. In other words, they were 5 cubicles open into the mavoi. There was no connection between, picture 5 squares. Until now, there was a hole between the squares. There's no hole between the squares. The only hole is on the southern part of the square. There's no hole on the eastern side of the square going across. It's going down, not pesuchas. Says the Gemara. Rav, Rav Yehuda Rav, Loitani pesuchas ulazu. V'chein Rav Kahana, Rav Loitani pesuchas ulazu. Ikedi Ami Rav Kahana, Guf himself Loitani pesuchas ulazu. Only by Rav Yosef, my time of the Loitani pesuchas ulazu. Kesavar kol shit of sheimach nisai umoitzio derech pesachim b'mavoy lav shmei shituf. In other words, fellas, in order for a shituf to work, in order for a sheet of voice to work, I have to be able to go why is it showing up? You can't see a thing, right? Like now you can. In other words, for this to work, you have to be able to go into the mavoi, out of the mavoi, into the mavoi, out of the mavoi. If you have a hole over here, then the chutzner is not going to go into the mavoi. You're going to go ahead, collect it all together, and therefore it's not going to go in and out. That's what he says. That's the problem why the Mishnah can't be speaking where there's a connection between all of them over here, because this is going to guarantee in the mavoi, out of the mavoi, in the mavoi, out of the mavoi, because that's the only exit you have. That's what we're beginning with. So says the Gemara, Ksava Rav, what's the reason? My time, Ksava calls shituf, any shituf from a voice. She'em achnisu amoitzi derech pesachim, that you don't go ahead in and out through the pesachim, you don't go in and out through where they go in. Lav shmei shituf. Esivei, I'll show you that's not true. Esivei, I'll show you that it's not true. I'll show you could have a shituf without going in and out. Where do you see that? Guys, we had a case earlier. They had a previous, fellas, guys had yayin. They had a previous partnership in yayin. Does it help for shituf mavois? Good. Hey, says, what do they have? These guys had wine stored away in a business partnership, and it's going to help. Wine is going to help. But one second, according to Rab, didn't you have to go in and out, in and out? Obviously, you didn't go in and out over here. It was a business deal. Why would you go in and out? You only go in and out what? When you had to make the shituf. You're using a previously existing condition, which has nothing to do with shituf, to be for your shituf. But that previous existing condition did not have the in, out that you're describing. That's the kasha. Says the Gemara. They don't have to make a shituf of voice. According to you, Rav, you should have to. Why? Because you didn't go in the movie, out of the movie, in the movie, out of the movie. So you in and out. Rashi says it's a daichadik question. We're going to slug it up eventually, so don't lose sleep over it, guys. You hear? You had a partnership in this wine. It had nothing to do with shitum of voice. So why would you go in and out of an alleyway, right? It makes no sense. Okay. Ace says the Gemara. How do you make a shitum of voice, right? What do you do? You go ahead, you take a chavius, and you say, this should be for all the people of the Mavoi, and you mazaka for them. But 1 second, I didn't go in, out, right? Says, Hasanami Dafkival, you went in and out. Maskla Rabbi Rav Chana, Rav Elmiata, Hiknle Pas Pesaloi, Hachanami Delay Havi Shituf. Guys, you're sitting around, it's Erev Shabbos, you have bread on the table, all the people, you're having a communal dinner, you're able to go ahead and then make a shituf voice on that bread. That bread did not go in, out. That's going to be the upshlag on Rav. Good? Says the Gemara. So, Elmiata, Hiknalei Pas, Besaloi, if you go ahead and be makna pas in a basket, Hachanami Delei Shituf, you're going to say it's not a shituf voice because you didn't go in, out. Hachanami, Ein Hachanami, you're right. Ivama Rav Yehuda Rav, and this is Rav himself. B'nei Chabura Shalim Masubim, B'Kiddush Yom, people that were eating together, who lived in the same cul-de-sac. And it was Erev Shabbos. And there was pas on the table, pas al shulchan, you can use it for an Erev. Imilo, others say mishum shituf. 1 second. How can you use it for a shituf, fellas? It's on the table. It didn't go in, out. You were just eating and it happened to be on the table. There's no difference. When they're in the house and the bread's on the house, and then it's for an Erev Chatzeres. And the Chatzah, then it's for what? In the Chatzah, it's for Ben Mavoi. What do you see? You don't need in, out, correct? So what did Rav mean then? Why couldn't they be open to each other? What was the problem? At the time of the Rav, the Kosavar, Ein Mavoi Nita Belechi Bekoira, Achiyu Botem B'Chatzeres Pesuch Maseicha. In order to have a Mavoi, fellas, you need 2 things. You need Chatzeros. In order to have Chatzeros, you need houses. If these Chatzeros are all connected as one and all going to the Mavoi, and you collect and go in as one, it's going to be considered one chutzner. So therefore, Rav said it had to be that the chatzeros were not connected. So therefore, you have in the mavoi, you have chatzeros going to the mavoi. If they're connected, we can view them as one big chutzner, and then it's lacking the physical conditions required for a mavoi, which is chatzeros, plural. Therefore, they couldn't be connected. They had to be 5 separately. I bid you all good night.